In this video, we'll be looking at developing a project idea. So when organisations and individuals working in the arts are thinking about ways to carry out their core mission, those things that are the most important things to achieve, they might soon realise that new projects are a really good way to facilitate this. So first of all, we should probably look at this idea of what is a project. So we're talking about an individual or collaborative undertaking or enterprise that's carefully planned to achieve a particular aim or a set of aims. So these might be things like a research project of some kind, or something as large as a project to build a new community centre, and really everything in between. A project is also a self-contained set of activity that's outside of the day-to-day activity of your organisation. So a project is something special that's happening kind of one time only. When we're thinking about where project ideas come from, there are two main strands that we're going to need to look at. One of those are needs, and that's looking at what's lacking and what is required in a situation. So those might be things like emerging needs, understanding things that are coming just in the near future, so changes to different situations that might lead people to need new things or different things. We also need to think about recognising existing needs, so times when an individual sees that they have a problem that needs a solution of some kind, and also thinking about how to clarify and articulate needs. So bringing those into succinct packages, working up those project ideas and working out what it is that people actually require. And that might be different from sometimes what groups of people state as their needs. There might be some deeper research that you need to do. We're also thinking about this in terms of opportunities. So this is thinking about what's available and how could you put those things to use. They might come in the form of new opportunities that maybe come out of funding, or maybe a set of events that are going on that you could respond to. Also thinking about existing ideas or formats that you could import. So different types of projects that happen in different places, for example, or best practice ideas that you've come in contact with. You could be thinking about something that you can do better or more efficiently than others. So this will be what's unique about what you offer in your organisation and how you can maybe supply that or make that project function in a more efficient way than other organisations. Then also you might be thinking about when you've got access to particular resources. So you might have access to particular people, spaces, venues, equipment, things like that. Those could also give you opportunities for a new project idea. There are two main approaches to identifying a project. One is the top-down approach, and the other is the bottom-up approach. And we're going to look at each of those and the advantages and disadvantages of each. So when we're thinking about a top-down approach, this is looking at projects that are identified based on demands that come from outside of a community. So this could be things like changes in national policy. It could be international conventions, so things like climate change or fisheries policy. Or it could be the way that international and national institutions or non-governmental organisations or other organisations have determined particular priorities. So this could be maybe your local authority, your local council has identified that there are particular things particular problems or things that need to be solved within a community. Some of the advantages to a top-down approach are the speed of response. So you'll see that if there's an earthquake or a disaster of some kind, that top-down thinking allows for rapid responses and coordination of different resources. Also, it can be effective in providing large-scale infrastructure and important services, so things like roads or housing, energy or travel, these different kind of things that might be infrastructure projects. And also, top-down thinking contributes to a wider national or international set of objectives or goals. In terms of the disadvantages, top-down thinking assumes that external individuals, so people outside of a community, know better than the beneficiaries themselves how those services should be managed. Also, it means that communities sometimes only have little say in the planning process and in the development of solutions, which can mean that they're feeling that things are imposed on them, or that those solutions don't quite fit what they actually need. Could also be thinking about communities becoming reliant or dependent on outside assistance, rather than being supported to develop their own potential, their own ideas and their own agency for action. And sometimes those delivering projects have the tendency to impose their own set of biases on the people who the project is designed to benefit. And sometimes those biases might be flawed in different ways, or they might be based on outdated or outmoded ideas. In contrast to that, a bottom-up approach is where projects are identified based on the demands within the community. So these are good at responding to local needs, so when the community itself is working out what it needs. Also, identifying needs and opportunities through first-hand experience. So people who are on the ground at the grassroots of where activities are going on may often have a better insight into those things from first-hand experience. And they also lead to embedded development and delivery of projects. So often the projects are developed and delivered by the people and by the community that will benefit from them. There are some advantages to working in this way. One of those would be like a deeper, pragmatic or realistic or practical understanding of what's lacking and what's required. Resources are often more efficiently managed using a bottom-up approach. So you'll have increased equity, initiative, accountability, and financial and economic discipline. This is because people are often better at looking after resources that they've had to secure themselves. Other advantages might include being able to accomplish more with limited resources, so by being more efficient and having those people on the ground to help carry out a project. And also it develops people's capacity to identify problems and different needs in their communities and to seek possible solutions to them. So this has a good sense of longevity. It's kind of educating people as they go along. Alongside that, bottom-up developed projects can provide opportunities for self-development, for learning and for skill sharing within communities. Also, projects that are built in this way are often more progressive and more sustainable. So a team of people work together, they own the project, and they develop a sense of we and ours. So this project belongs to us, rather than being imposed by them, some other people from an external position. There are, of course, some disadvantages to this bottom-up approach. It's really time-consuming, and it can take too long sometimes for projects that require that urgent action to implement. So when we were thinking about those disaster situations, maybe a bottom-up approach isn't the best in those situations. It also requires patience and tolerance. So you're going to have to talk and work with a lot of different people and make sure that they're tolerant of each other's views and each other's voices. It also involves people having to take responsibility for what's going on in their community. And this can be something that sometimes people don't really want to do. So they'd rather that somebody else provided those services or those things rather than them having to take that responsibility themselves. There's also potential using this kind of grassroots approach for projects to become hijacked in some way by the loudest voices. So it means that project managers are going to have to really carefully facilitate this and safeguard everyone's voices in the community. It can be harder for project managers to guarantee particular results or outcomes when using this kind of bottom-up approach. And also the priorities of communities might not fit with those national or international priorities that seek to have a wider and a broader impact than just in that local situation. So when you're looking at ways to identify new projects, one of the first things that you're going to have to get to grips with is analysing the situation that you find yourself in. Now, there are lots of different tools that you can use for this type of situation analysis. One of them that you might already be familiar with is this SWOT analysis. So that's where you're looking at the strengths, weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats. The next is the 5 C's analysis, and that's looking at things like customers, so who it is that you're dealing with, that your project is dealing with, your company, what it can achieve and what it can provide, who those competitors are, who else is delivering or developing projects like this, the context, the kind of wider climate that you're working within, and then also those collaborators and complementers, so people who you can work with or alongside to develop new projects. You might also be thinking about this in terms of direct observation. So this is things that you've seen and you've encountered, or other people in your organisation or your community are encountering on a kind of daily basis. You'd want to think about new data that's available. So this might be things like economic or health data, different demographic information, things about infrastructure, things that help to describe the population that you're working with and the place that you're in, what's available to you. You might also think about engaging in different types of public or private conversations. So they would need to be led by facilitators or animators or change agents, these people are often called. What situation analysis is going to help you do is to really understand both the internal context, that's the position of your organisation and what it currently provides and how it does those things, and the external context, so understanding all of the other things that are going on outside of your organisation. Another useful tool that you have is brainstorming with stakeholders in your project. So stakeholders are all of those people who stand to benefit from the project in some way. They might be funders that you're working with, they might be the community that your project will benefit, they might be other people in your organisation and other people who will be delivering the project. This helps you to develop like community support and awareness for the project that you're creating. It also helps to generate ideas and new solutions, so you'll have lots of different people with a wide range of experience involved in brainstorming for what projects need to happen and what solutions there are to different needs or opportunities. And it will also help you draw up clear aims that stakeholders can all agree on. So that will help people feel again like they have ownership in the project and then it means something to them. Whenever you're identifying a new project, a really useful thing to do will be to prepare and write a problem statement. So to do this, you'd list all of the problems or needs in the community or the area or the organisation that you're working. Then you want to start to prioritise those problems. So you might involve other people in that conversation to see which the big priorities are. Then you want to pick 1 to 3 core or major problems that are going on that you need to find solutions to. Then try and find out the root cause of these problems. So what are all the possible things that could be causing this situation to be how it is? And working out which of those are the most likely causes. You also want to be thinking about the likely effects that the problem have on the community that's involved, and then suggesting possible or probable solutions to these problems. All of that will mean that you come to a point where you've got this list of probable solutions, and those are the things that can become the starting point for your new project. So identifying the projects or possible projects that you could make from the solutions that you're coming up with to a set of problems or key major problems, either in your organisation or your community. Once you've done all of this, once you've kind of got these ideas floating around, you're working out what those problems are, what the needs, opportunities, different possibilities are, you're going to need to define the need for your project. So this is going to help you get people on board, so people to work on the project, to fund the project, things like that. And you need to clearly state what is the problem. So this should explain why your project is needed, why it's really necessary. Also, who has the problem, or who's the client or the customer in this situation. This is about defining the community, really. And it should explain who needs the solution, who needs this project, and who will decide when the problem has been solved or when the project is effective. You're also going to need to define the scope of your project. So this is how large it is, how long it is, how many people it can deal with, how many people could be involved. It's also going to think about what form that this resolution to the problem, so your solution to the problem, your new project, what forms can it take? So what are the possible shapes that you could use here? Is it going to be an event or a series of workshops? Is it going to be like a weekly book group? Or is it going to be some kind of online platform that allows people to communicate with each other? These are all different possible shapes that projects might take. Also, you want to be thinking about what the scope and limitations of what you have that can be used to solve the problem. So you'll be thinking in terms of time, money, resources, the people involved, the technologies that you have access to, and how appropriate all of these things are for solving your problem with your particular community.